Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aaron, and excited to share this with you. As much as it is a presentation, this project is still very much in its infancy and looking to have feedback, dialogue, collaboration from this community. There's so many different ideas here and expertise is here that I look forward to hearing from to further develop this. As you've heard, South Florida has a massive amount of assets at risk for storm surge, for sea level rise, for extreme rain events. And the coastline is a way that we've been thinking about how to comprehensively look at these different challenges that we're facing and apply the lessons from nature. How can we defend this community that we've created by restoring the very ecology that we destroyed in its creation? How can we look at all these different neighborhoods that have put a priority on waterfront land, where we have gone out of our way to create as much waterfront as possible, where in small communities we can have dozens and dozens of miles of waterfront property. This proposal, the coastline, is in essence a response to the United States Army Corps of Engineers, USACE Back Bay study, which is looking to protect us from storm surge. It is a very dangerous and destructive aspect of hurricanes, and the sole priority of the Back Bay study is storm surge. But with a project of that size and cost, I think it needs to look more comprehensively at all of the different challenges and implement green infrastructure, native ecology as much as possible. As much as we have beautiful water views, as we know, there's a lot of challenges with dealing with water as well. These rain bomb events that can put a lot of water into a small environment need to be handled in a neighborhood context solution, kind of what we just heard at the last panel, like what they said, the middle ground. At the Climate Resilience Committee at the City of Miami in 2 weeks, I'll be presenting a proposal for sponge parks that I think needs to be more embedded throughout our cities. And these rain events, they create sediment. They're hurting the environment if we don't have the infrastructure on land to protect us. And then we also have king tide events that are disrupting way of life, overtopping the seawall. There's some incredible work going on at this location to build an updated park. And here's another king tide event in Edgewater, where that person couldn't get home. They were wearing new sneakers. He was waiting it out. And when all these events kind of coincide, this is the effect of a hurricane event, of a high tide event, and this entire neighborhood is flooded from one side of the street to the other. And it doesn't just take a few minutes to go away. It could take hours or even days. And also, besides just impacting quality of life, beside flooding all these people's homes, this was on the Herald, there's pictures of this neighborhood, there's also sediment being washed into our stormwater system, into our parks. There's people who are taking advantage of it and trying to have fun, but I wouldn't recommend going in the water. If you do, there's various ways. You know, this gentleman was creative about it. He used some duct tape and some trash bags, and he had to get home. This street in Edgewater, it's pretty well known. It's been flooding significantly for years. So when we zoom back out and just look at the whole region, we have so much water all around us, and our natural geography acts a bit like a funnel. I think this is why we saw so much photos from past storm events, where all around Brickell, you may have seen that iconic photo of the young lady sitting on top of a water hydrant. And the water went all the way up into Brickell. And the Army Corps' plan at one point was actually a wall all the way out here in the west and along Biscayne Boulevard. And then it slowly moved into the water. Now, if it is going to be something along the coastline, we have to ensure that we're taking into account the history of our ecology and looking to reintroduce it as best as we can. So when we look at all of the existing large-scale projects like the Miami Loop, like the Shoreline project we just saw, like the Reef Line, which is protecting the beaches, which is a very critical part of the overall storm protection. we have to look at all these different plans, the stormwater master plans, the park master plans, our zoning, our land use, collectively, comprehensively, to ensure that we're going to create something that works together, especially when we have federal dollars coming for something like the coastline, for the Back Bay study. So looking at these 5 main areas, water enters and leaves the bay primarily through these locations, as well as through our limestone. But those 5 locations is where a majority of the movement is occurring. So if we could protect those locations at precise moments, like right before a large hurricane event, we can actually protect hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles of direct waterfront, as well as the waterfront along all of those canals. And it's not just the direct waterfront property that's at stake, it's all the properties inland that are still low-lying. We have massive amounts of property that are very close to high water line. And it's also 2 different counties here. We have Miami-Dade County, we have Broward County, all those different municipalities that have their own goals and ideas and neighbors and people with their own ambitions of what they want their neighborhoods to look like. So the coastline looks at this comprehensively so that we can create the time and stability for all of those municipalities to come and create their own more specific plans. So we're gonna just zoom in on this one section here. It looks to link into the beautiful Serpentine Park of south of 5th, goes around 395, around downtown, and then around Brickell Key, and locks into Southeast 15th Road. And about halfway between the bay and the underline is high ground. So if it can tie into that, we can do so in a very natural progression where we don't have to have this abrupt seawall coming up. It can be like you're just walking down the street and all of a sudden you're almost like on the High Line and you're just walking through a nature path that continues. And it can wrap around Brickell and Brickell Key. We can implement oysters, wetlands, aquatic areas. So the stormwater system that's coming through Brickell out onto the bayfront, just as we saw in that last presentation, which has some great examples, we can use that water, that fresh water, to re-engineer the aquatic systems that were once here. And there'll be a series of locks that can close at these specific moments. And that'll protect the entire river basin, all of the Miami River Basin, all of those properties. And it'll help also inland properties, because the river acts as part of the Stormwater Master Plan, as part of the South Florida Water Management District. So by looking at this comprehensively, we actually make the stormwater system work better, and we can introduce thousands and thousands of feet of the native ecology that was once here. We can reintroduce it. I feel like working right now and figuring out a proposal that the community is excited about in response to the Back Bay study is critical, that we can reintroduce the ecology that was here, that we all want to see, to help reinvigorate the bay. It'll protect our communities. It'll give all the municipalities all around this area time to save money and come up with longer term plans that's probably going to include managed retreat, because then we don't have to do smaller scale projects like small road raising. If we could think longer term, then we can save the money and do those bigger projects, and also think about where maybe it doesn't make sense to do those types of projects, like what they were doing in Florida Keys. So this is just high-level concept designs. By no means is this what it could look like or should look like. While people have said, this is innovative, we need proposals like this, there are also challenges here. How are we going to ensure that this land remains a park? How are we going to ensure this land remains ecologically natural? How are we going to make sure, like using the funding mechanisms that we just heard from Walter, that it can be protected? And ensure that we don't have other proposals that come out to try to do things that would be counteractive to the bay. So hopefully we can come up with ideas and link in other projects like a pedestrian bridge that'll connect the Baywalk from Brickell Key around the beautiful Brickell Loop into Bayfront Park, and work together to try to figure out what are the challenges here, what have I not thought about, what do you have an idea here that we should include? Do you have a sketch? Do you have a presentation? What can we do to try to figure out a project that'll have the greatest ROI to the entire region from Miami all the way to Broward, because that northernmost circle that we saw at the beginning is the Stranahan River, all the way in Fort Lauderdale, and it protects all the way to there. How can we ensure that if this project moves forward, if I think it should move forward, how can we make sure that the federal dollars that would be leveraged here are going to be able to be applied to ensure that the bay remains as healthy as possible? So I think this is kind of getting to the end of the slides, but some of the other challenges is when we see this and we see a beautiful thing along a waterfront, how is this impacting everyone else in Miami? Miami has a lot of other neighborhoods, but again, this type of a project will help the South Florida Water Management District actually manage water more proactively. And I think it may be a little audacious, but when we have these events where it gets so hot and the water is like steaming and we're having fish die-offs and there's a lack of oxygen, perhaps a system like this could actually allow for us to move water through the bay in a more proactive manner, where utilizing the natural high and low tides, which don't have too high of a coefficient down here, but if we could somehow sometimes lock the bay for a period of time as the water retreats and then open it, we may actually be able to push water through the bay during those times when it's really hot and start to get the movement from the higher parts of the water table to the bottom to refresh that oxygen, to cool it off. I'm not sure if that would even make sense or work, but you know, I feel like I'm in the right place to talk to people who might know. So that's the Coastline. This is something we put together on our own, just as a kind of ground up idea to try to showcase what is possible here. And yeah, so if you're interested in learning more, there is a tab on our website, futurevisionstudios.us, and you can look at some of these images. You can read a little bit more about it. And at the very bottom of that page, there is a contact form. We're going to be trying to create something called the Coastline Coalition of people who are interested in this and want to work with us to help figure it out. Or if you just want to tell me it's great or it's not great or any ideas you have, please share them there. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, sir.